If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel. And yes, brand new camera. I'm actually trying out my GoPro that I got this past Monday. And I got a GoPro because, well, my boys over at the Thralls of Metal use a GoPro, and I thought, why don't I get one and see if it'll actually help my videos out. Now, I am experimenting a little bit on this video. I'm actually recording both off of the GoPro mic and my normal microphone that's over there by my computer, and just testing to see how the audio is going to go. But this is mainly a test video, but I thought what better video to do a test on than a new CD collection update video. Yeah, it's been a little while since we've done one of these and it was live, but I thought, you know what, how about for this week, or this time around, I'm going to go and do an update off of the GoPro and see how the lighting and everything comes out. Definitely need to get better lighting, but I'll get that sorted out here pretty soon. But I got a little stack. It's not a huge stack, and I'm actually currently working on another stack right now as we speak. But without further ado, let's take a look at this collection update as it stands right now. So the first CD we got right here is Blind Guardian's Imaginations from the Other Side. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of European power metal. It has to be done very well. And Blind Guardian is one of those bands that does the entire European power metal style very well. Granted, I've not been a huge fan of Hansi Kirsch as of late, and it's for certain reasons that I'm not going to get into right now, but regardless, it doesn't change the fact that Blind Guardian is still one of the top tier European power metal bands out there. Not quite as good as, say, Halloween for me, since without Halloween you wouldn't have Blind Guardian, but I picked this one up because I found one of my Instagram and Discog buddies had this for sale, and I bought a lot of stuff off of him from Discogs. I actually need to check and see if he's got anything new I'm interested in to check out and buy. But yeah, this was one of those that I got. Actually, quite a few of these come from this guy. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I digress. But yeah, Imaginations from the Other Side. This one was 1995, I believe. So this was like, I think, right before their masterpiece album, Nightfall and Middle-earth. And yeah, I might get some of the more classic Blind Guardian stuff, you know, like Night at the Opera and Beyond the Red Mirror, I think was what that one in 2015 was called. I actually have forgotten to check out their album last year, God Machine, I think was what it was called, and I heard it was fantastic, so I'll have to dig into that one. But yeah, I got Imaginations from the Other Side right here, and I got it for a pretty good price on Discogs from a friend, so yeah. Blind Guardian, Imaginations from the Other Side. And speaking of Blind Guardian, we've got Demons and Wizards' self-titled debut. So I guess I'm going to get into why I've not been too big on Hansi Kirsch as of late, because he basically left John Schaefer high and dry 2 years ago, and that wasn't right. So kind of a dick move on Hansi Kirsch's part, but I digress. But this was the project of both Hansi and John Schaefer, pretty much combining the best of Blind Guardian and the best of Iced Earth, and mix it together in this album that came out in 1999. And this is actually an original copy from SPV Steamhammer Records. And this album, I actually haven't listened to it yet, or any of the Demons and Wizards stuff, but from what I heard, they're fantastic power metal albums that fit more in the darker, sinister style, kind of closer to Iced Earth, but with a different vocal approach. It is basically the best way I could describe Demons and Wizards, just based off of the stuff that I have heard, as well as what I've been told or have seen out there on the internet. But yeah, it is kind of interesting how I got both this and a Blind Guardian album in this update. It's just no Iced Earth in this update. I got an Iced Earth. Well, actually, there is one Iced Earth album I had in my previous update, Night and Storm Rider, so there, a little Iced Earth connection. But yeah, Demons and Wizards, self-titled. Moving on to something of recent times, and this is the second album from 2023 that I got, and that's the new Hellripper, Warlocks, Grim, and Withered Hags. So yeah, of course, if you guys have seen my review of the new Hellripper, you'll know how much I loved it. My first 10 out of 10 this year. I absolutely thought this album was kick-ass all the way through. Basically a nice blend of like first wave black metal with thrash metal, early speed metal, and classic heavy metal all throughout. I mean, just to kind of do a brief for those who haven't seen my review, you should check it out. But starting off with the Knuckle Lave, it's such a thrashing ripper of a song with some like cool black metal arpeggios and atmosphere. And then the title track, very like almost Black Sabbath or a slower Slayer track. The Curse Carrion Crown is speedy as all get out. Hissing Marshes is basically a Hellripper, like James McBain paying homage to tracks like Ace of Spades and Iron Fist by Motorhead. Poison Womb, The Curse of the Witch. Rise from the cunt of the beast. Still love that line. And then Mester Storeworm, basically like combining so much of like classic metal, black metal, thrash metal, and then it even gets a little bit Opeth-ish, like talking Bay of the Hounds, My Arms Your Hearse. Basically like James channeling his inner Michael Ockerfeld, songwriting-wise on that track. And yeah, this album just kicks ass all the way through, and dare I say, the best Hellripper album to date. Who knows about for another next album if James can top this. It's going to be tough, but I'm confident my boy James can pull it off. So yeah, Hellripper. Now let's get into an early 90s classic. Well, classic to me, maybe not so much to others. But Iron Maiden, Fear of the Dark. I know it was a surprise I didn't have this in the collection already, but I just had to get this to complete the Maiden collection. I'm actually very, very close to completing the Iron Maiden discography. I think the only albums I'm missing now are, alright, let's see, Live After Death, their live album from '85, X Factor, and Virtual 11. Yeah, I am going to get the Blaze Bayley stuff. Dance of Death and Final Frontier. I think those are the only like main albums I'm missing. And also, what makes it kind of frustrating sometimes when you're buying a certain band's discography is that, well, sometimes you get digipacks, sometimes you get the jewel case, and in the case of Iron Maiden, the first 4 albums I ever bought from Iron Maiden were Killers, Number of the Beast, Power Slave, and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I got them as jewel cases. Everything else is digipack, well, apart from Book of Souls, because I got that when it was originally out in 2015. But yeah, it is kind of frustrating how it's like now pretty much all the Maiden catalog is in digipack form with cool little spines. So I am probably going to rebuy Killers, Number of the Beast, Power Slave, and Seventh Son in the digipacks, just to have them all in digipacks, so that way it doesn't feel or look uneven, if that makes sense. But I digress there as my phone decided to quack! But anyways, but yeah, this album, I know this is maybe not the best Maiden album, it's definitely near the bottom for a lot of people, but I still think it's really good. Like, even the, quote, bad Iron Maiden albums are still good, decent albums. Like this one, like Be Quick or Be Dead, The Fugitive, Afraid to Shoot Strangers from Here to Eternity, Fear is the Key, but definitely the title track, Fear in the Dark, one of the best Iron Maiden songs of all time. And I know at some point this year I am going to be ranking all of the Maiden albums, which that's going to be a task in of itself because, let's see, 17 albums? That's going to be a long one, so yeah, but Fear of the Dark. Blech. Now we're going to get into something a little more underground, and probably one that a lot of people don't know about, and that's Maceration's It Never Ends. I got their debut, A Serenade of Agony, in the last update, and this was the second album that came out just last year. It was a 30-year gap between albums for Maceration. Of course, the debut, It Never Ends, A Serenade of Agony, definitely had like a more atmospheric, more gruff sound, whereas this feels closer to like classic Swedish death metal, like Dismember, Entombed, and especially Bloodbath. And the funny thing about both of these albums, they both have Dan Swano on vocals. And this one I think I like more than A Serenade of Agony. Hell, this was on my year-end list for 2022. I want to say it was in the 21 to 30 range. Could have been a top 20. But yeah, this is a fantastic album for fans of that buzzsaw, HM2, guitar tone, and death metal. This is definitely one for you to check out. And it's got Dan Swano on vocals, and he does production, I think, mixing and mastering. And it sounds absolutely fantastic. So yeah, check it out. Next up, we get a mid-80s gem, and I was needing to get this album for a long time, and that is Metal Church The Dark. So yeah, this was their second album, and this was on Elektra Records. So yeah, pretty much right from the rip after their self-titled debut, they gained a big buzz and got signed to a major label around the same time Metallica did. And this album, The Dark, I think is still probably the best Metal Church album I've heard, especially for songs like the title track, and especially the song Watch the Children Pray. That is such a gorgeous song. And, I mean, top to bottom, this I feel is a very underrated album, very underrated sophomore album. Like, compared to the debut, it's like leaps and bounds better than the debut in terms of the sonics, the songwriting approach, and definitely getting more thrashy on this album, whereas the debut was kind of more speed metal and like early power metal. You still get those, but there's a little bit more of a thrash dexterity on this one. Definitely close to Metallica and even bands like Anthrax, bands along those lines, but also incorporating a little bit of, say, like bands like Agent Steel in terms of like the higher vocals, and when it does get into those more speedy moments. Man, my nose is itchy, sorry. But yeah, The Dark by Metal Church. Now we get into a pair. We have a pair from Napalm Death. We have Words from the Exit Wound and Smear Campaign. Two completely different eras of Napalm Death. Like, Words from the Exit Wound in particular, this is an OG copy from Earache Records in 1998 when this album came out. I know the majority of the 90s Napalm Death discography, well, really like the second half of the 90s, not very well liked by a lot of fans. Like, Diatribes is seen as the weakest album for a lot of people. Same with, like, Inside the Torn Apart. This one, I think, was a massive step up from both Diatribes and Inside the Torn Apart in terms of songwriting. Like, it still has some of that groove metal that they were doing on the previous three albums to this, like from Fear, Emptiness, Despair through Inside the Torn Apart. But this one kind of brings back a little more ferocity. Like, this album, I felt, should have been the album after Fear, Emptiness, Despair, because it kind of fits in line with that, but this one's a little more hostile and beefy sounding. Like, the production was less clean on here, and it was produced by Colin Richardson as well, so it definitely helps. But yeah, tracks like The Infiltrator, Next of Kin to Chaos, Devouring Depraved, Clutching at the Barbs, Skeptic in Perspective, like, there are some very good songs on here. Granted, this album would still be near the bottom if I were to do a Napalm Death album ranking, which that could happen this year. I am doing one more poll for 2023 to let you guys pick what band you want me to do a discography ranking of. But I'm not going to put that poll up for quite a while until I can at least figure out what bands I want to include. But yeah, that's Words from the Exit Wound. Now for Smear Campaign, and this one is a unique version. This is the double, well, not double disc, but it's a digipack version of the album that has a couple of bonus tracks, because I want to get most of, or really all of the songs. Yeah, excuse me, but yeah, Smear Campaign I definitely think is a hell of an album. Like, this would definitely be probably top 10 Napalm Death albums for me, because holy shit, tracks like Fatalist, Indifference, Freedom is the Wage of Sin, Persona Non Grata, Deaf and Dumbstruck, and the title track. Like, pretty much this is hostile grindcore, death metal, whatever you want to call it. Death grind, I think, is more appropriate. But yeah, Smear Campaign, Napalm Death. Now, the next 4 are going to be all from the same band, because I kind of got into a bit of a craze over this band again in recent times, and I've gotten pretty much now all of the amazing albums. First, and they're all from Shadows Fall. First, The Art of Balance. So yeah, this was the big breakthrough in 2002 for these Massachusetts guys. While I know a lot of people like to call them metalcore, really the only thing that's metalcore to me about Shadows Fall is the vocal approach with that melodic and hardcore bark. But musically, to me, they were more a mix of like melodic death metal, but most importantly, thrash metal. Like, I think at their core, pun intended, they're a thrash metal band. To call them metalcore, to me, just doesn't quite make sense. Kind of the same reason why I don't describe Trivium as metalcore. And also, the big thing that separates Shadows Fall and Trivium from any metalcore band, guitar leads and solos. If you have more than 50% guitar solos on an album, you're not a metalcore band, to me at least. And yeah, Art of Balance, I mean, I gave this album a first time listen all the way through in recent months, and I absolutely loved it, so I had to get it. And then one of the albums I was definitely very familiar with for a few songs, The War Within, which was the follow-up in 2004. After all, the song The Light That Blinds, I remember vividly from playing Guitar Hero 2 growing up, and that song was amazing. Also, What Drives the Weak, The Power of I and I. Like, I remember this one was an even bigger breakthrough for Shadows Fall because of The Light That Blinds being on Guitar Hero 2. But still, the album itself is aggressive and hostile and a ton of fun. And then we get the follow-up to that, 2007's Threads of Life. And this is really where the thrash metal really was fully realized. Like, on the previous 2, it was still thrash forward, but still having some of those like melodic death metal and occasional hardcore moments. Here, this is more or less straight up thrash, and not as much of the gruffer vocals. Like, there's definitely more melody going on here. Like, songs like Another Hero Lost is very melodic, but the song, the opening track, Redemption, I remember jamming that song a ton because I played Madden NFL 2008 on my PS2, and that song was in the soundtrack for the game, and I absolutely fell in love with it. But yeah, I haven't listened to this one all the way through, but I need to at some point. And then finally, their latest album, Fire from the Sky. I remember this album when it came out in 2012, and it's kind of an interesting concept, all about how people thought 2012 was going to be the year the world ended or whatever, and all that crap. So they kind of decided to play with that theme, but just make it a concept or themes around confusion in the world, being lost. But there are some amazing songs on here, like The Unknown, Weight of the World, the title track in particular. That's almost like a death metal track. Like, they're channeling Morbid Angel a little bit on some of the riffs, and even death growls from the guitarist Matt. Blind Faith, I think, was a very good one that kind of like brings in aggression and a lot of good melody. But yeah, definitely this album. I hope we get a follow-up to this, since the band is back together. Hopefully we get a new album sooner rather than later. But yeah. And then the final CD that I got for this update is Zentric's 7 Words. So yeah, I was trying to find a cheap copy of this somewhere because this is one of my top 10 albums of 2022 and one of my favorite thrash albums of 2022. Really, after I got into the first two SPECTRIX albums, I'm trying to remember the name of the Shattered Existence and For Whose Advantage. Like, after I got into those two cult classics and I saw that this was coming out, I was looking forward to this. Definitely a lot different from the first two. Like, this almost feels like a hybrid of Metallica and Testament and a little bit of, like, Exodus and Creator. Like, all four of those bands mashed together into this album. Because the guitar tone kind of has, like, moments of Creator and Exodus, but the riffing is very much like Metallica and Testament to me. But yeah, this album fucking whooped ass. If you haven't checked this album yet, do yourself a favor, check it out. But anyways, that was my latest CD collection update and also testing out the GoPro. I hope everything looks pretty cool. I know eventually I'm going to get this light bulb replaced with a like bright white bulb, like almost like an LED studio light bulb, as well as my lamp light, get that replaced too with a proper LED light. So I'm slowly making improvements on my videos as I go, especially now that I got this GoPro. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you never know, I might actually use the GoPro for like POV shots of go-kart racing the next time I go to Tennessee, or for a cooking video where you can get a nice view of the stovetop whenever I am cooking. You never know what I'm going to do with this little bugger apart from what I'm doing here. And this is kind of the new recording setup. I got this. This used to be my computer desk for a long time. Put a blanket over it just to like cover up the front so you don't see me legs, because you never know what might be under there. I got on shorts, it's fine. And then of course a good view of the CDs, and if I were to open this and come out of the closet, ha ha ha. But yeah, just making improvements as I go, and we'll see where we go from here. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know how everything looks camera-wise, sound-wise. Like, I'm doing a test. I might end up going with the microphone audio just because I think it's a little bit better than the GoPro mic. I am going to make adjustments to the microphone on the GoPro at some point. I just got to get all the right stuff for it. But that's neither here nor there. But thank you guys for watching. As always, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.